Alright folks, welcome back. Today we've got a nice vintage custom piece here. The base gun is pretty neat in and of itself. We've got a pre-war Colt National Match pistol. This one shipped from Colt as a fixed sight National Match pistol in September of 1938. The pistol sometime then visited the Micro gun sight shop. Micro was one of the longest running in the 1900s. One of the longest running accessory sight companies out there. They operated. They are believed to have been founded just prior to World War II. According to a couple sources, the founder's name was George Thanish. Former employee of the King's Gunsight Corporation. I believe also that Mr. Thanish was able to, during the war years and post-war years, hired out a couple more guys from the King's shop to work for him. And in those early days, they didn't just offer sights, they offered services as well. This pistol is the result of those services. Oftentimes you'll see work done by the Micro shop on Colt officers model targets. I've had a number of them through here. I've also had a Colt New Service that I attributed to them as well. Often what you'll see is, of course, Micro sights. So that's a Micro rear sight, and the front blade there is also fabricated for this project. This gun also has a long trigger fitted with a trigger shoe on it, and another Micro touch that, like it or not, was stolen from King's. Basically, is the radial checkering like this. And I say stolen from King's. In the pre-war years, Colt offered from the factory checkering. It was, I believe, applied by a hand engraver with a hammer and chisel style engraving, and it was fully bordered on the front strap and nicely done. But the King's and Micro offerings, I believe, were applied with a spacing file as they run off the edges of the front strap. The gun also has a welded up and refit interlaced HP barrel on it, so the barrel predates the gun a fair bit, but it's been welded up and refit, and of course has a Micro marked bushing. We also, in the pre-war years, you see very few, it's pretty rare to see a King's modified 1911 pistol, but they will often have a King marked bushing. That was a common thing in the early days of modifying the 1911. If you were making your own bushings, you marked them. King did it, Dynan did it, Micro did it, Shockey did it, that of course being post-war, but it was common for bushings to bear the maker's mark. Chow did it after the war, and Chow came from the King's shop as well. So, when D.W. King, Dean King, owner of King's Gunsight, died, and now this is, again, the research, the internet tells me many dates for his death. Some as early as 1946, and some as late as 1953, 54. So let's just cut it in the middle. When he died about 1950, King's Gunsight was kind of a ship without a captain. And these guys who had worked for King's for years started kind of, getting their own things going. Chow started his own shop. Al Capone, started King's Gunworks. And the Micro company, I believe, harvested a few employees from the King's gun house there. In 1955, January of 55, the heirs of Dean King, owners of the King's Gunsight Company, at that time sued Micro for infringement, and I forget the legalese here, but basically for pilfering customers and custom work from King's. It was alleged that employees of King's who were working for Micro or starting Micro were taking work out of the King's book and copying it to include the cockeyed hammer modification on revolvers, and also just taking customers. You know, a customer comes in and wants a job. King's was a busy shop. These guys starting Micro said, you know, I've got my own thing going on the side. I can get you done faster, cheaper, what have you. So anyway, I don't believe King's won that suit. I believe it was dismissed, and King's went away. Ricky Gunsight took over selling their sights for a while, and that faded out in I believe the late 50s, early 60s. And King's was heard of no more, short of the company that Al Capone started, King's Gun Works, not King's Gun Sight. Anyway, enough about King's, but that's where a lot of this starts, right? The story starts at King's. So the 5 or 6 guys named on the suit that owned Micro, George Thanish was one of them. I can't find really much information on Mr. Thanish other than what's in the suit and a couple of Ruger researchers, because Ruger used Micro sights in the early days, mentioned him being the founder. On to the pistol. Beautiful example. Started with, you know, the best of the best, the Colt National Match government model. This pistol would have shipped originally with fixed sights. We do have a letter here. Interesting about the letter is it's shipped to Von Lengerke Antone in Chicago, Illinois. And why does that matter? Well, that was a shop frequented by gangsters, mob members in the day. Now this pistol shipped roughly 5 years after Capone was put away, but a lot of Capone's guns were traced back to that shop. Also, interestingly enough, Capone's favorite 1911, which sold at auction recently for millions of dollars, crazy money, is a Micro customized pre-war M1911. I believe it's a 20s gun, early 20s gun. And I believe the Micro customization was done by his son after he went away to jail. He had it modified for target shooting like this gun. But it also features the bias checkering on the front and the Micro sights. That gun is engraved sort of crudely, but it is engraved and had, I believe, stag grips on it. Anyway, it's just interesting to see, you know, that this gun had the same shipping destination as Capone's gun and ended up with the same modifications. Is there a connection there? Who knows, other than coincidence. But as I said, the gun's been tightened up. There's no play at all in this frame to slide. There's no play at all in that barrel. The Micro bushing is wicked tight. Requires a wrench absolutely to get it out. The most unique modification is this little welded on addendum to the grip safety. And we don't see a lot of care put into comfort of the grip safety other than guys chopping hammers off, shortening hammers in the early days. But this is an interesting way to get around hammer bite there. It does protect the hand. I have not shot this gun, but I imagine it would be quite comfortable, even though it has the original long spur hammer in there. This gun is a Swartz safety gun. If you can see that there, it does have all the Swartz parts in it. The gun is largely original parts other than the sights, the modified grip safety, and the trigger. It does have the original frame controls and the original checkered, half-polished inside mainspring housing and fully polished sear spring. I'll show you another early custom feature here inside. One thing that a lot of early bullseye shops did when they peened frame rails to tighten things up, they would then polish everything back to the white after finishing, and this gun displays that. Beautifully polished and just dead smooth, clear front to back. Here we see the welded up barrel feet on the barrel, and we see one of the earliest, I wouldn't say the earliest because King was doing them too, recoil buffers. And there's so they take a GI guide rod and put a heavy spring in there and a plunger here. And you can feel this when you draw the slide all the way back. That last 1/8 of an inch or so is buffered as the recoil plug hits that. And that was a way, especially in early guns that had non-fully hardened slides. This is a 30s gun, so it does have a hardened slide nose and has the hardened bushing around the firing pin. But it's not a fully hardened slide like the post-war guns would be. So these buffers were, in my theory, added to alleviate slide cracking from heavy use that target shooters often would put these guns through. This gun has lived a pretty charmed life, as shown here. Has beautiful bluing on it and is tight and right. Frame rails, slide rails still polished in the white, so it has not been refinished since the work was done. I was talking about Micro being a long-running company. Micro was dissolved in the early 2000s, so they had a great run there, 60 years or so probably. They had a bedding compound part of the company that Brownells bought, and I believe Ruger absorbed the sight part of the business. Again, just snippets I can gather on the internet. There's nobody really telling the story about these companies. But I tried to gather as much information as I can for you guys to share. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Please, thanks for following along. Subscribe to the channel, and we'll keep the videos coming. Thank you.